The Uncharted Future. A collection of sci-fi visions by Raina Yeh. This short story is called The Forever Cure.
Scientists call it telomeric stabilization therapy, but the world knows it as the forever cure. It starts in the lab, in a sterile room filled with bioreactors and gene sequencers. The breakthrough comes when researchers identify a protein complex capable of repairing telomerase, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes that shorten each time a cell divides. Normally, telomeres wear down, cells age, and the body deteriorates, but with this discovery, the cycle of decay is interrupted. The key lies in manipulating telomerase, an enzyme that rebuilds telomeres. By inserting a synthetic gene sequence into human DNA, scientists reprogram cells to produce a controlled bursts of telomerase, reversing the biological clock. They call the gene sequence CREX17, a modified variant of a naturally occurring gene that's been tweaked to avoid the risks of cancer. A common side effect of unchecked cell division, CRISPR-Cas9, is used to deliver the sequence precisely, editing the genome without error. The process is quick, efficient, and revolutionary. Alongside telomerase manipulation, the treatment includes epigenetic reprogramming. Specific transcription factors reset the cells to a youthful state, clearing out senescent cells that no longer divide but linger, causing inflammation and damage. Stem cells are coaxed back to their prime, regenerating tissues, organs, even neurons in the brain. A cocktail of peptides and microRNAs fine-tune the body's internal machinery, preventing the buildup of misfolded proteins that lead to aplomb-related diseases. Every organ is restored, every function optimized. The first trials show miraculous results. Old mice become spry, their gray fur replaced with sleek coats. Tissue samples from elderly human volunteers show cell renewal at rates never seen before. Wrinkles fade, hair regrows, organs rejuvenate. The world watches in awe as centenarians walk without canes, run marathons, and speak of feeling 20 again. The media calls it the most significant medical breakthrough in history. Headlines promise an end to aging, a future where death is optional. The forever cure is made available to the public, but it is not cheap. Pharmaceutical companies patent the process, and the cost is astronomical. Only the wealthy can afford the initial treatments. The rich become ageless, their bodies immune to time. They live in luxury, investing in industries, buying property, and accumulating wealth without the limitations of lifespan. Corporations are led by CEOs who never retire, governments are run by leaders who never step down, and billionaires continue to amass fortunes indefinitely. The gap between rich and poor widens. Those who can't afford the forever cure watch from the sidelines as the world changes around them. The wealthy look younger every year while the rest age and die as they always have. Protests erupt. There are calls for the treatment to be made available to all, but the cost of production is too high, the patents too tightly controlled. The companies argue that mass distribution is impossible without collapsing the healthcare system. They promise that prices will drop, but for now, immortality remains a luxury. The ethical dilemmas grow. The forever cure is not perfect. Over time, the telomerase activation can cause unforeseen genetic anomalies. Some individuals develop cancerous growths despite the safeguards as rogue cells bypass the intended pathways. New forms of genetic instability arise, and while treatable, they are expensive and require continuous monitoring. People begin to question the long-term consequences of manipulating human biology so profoundly. Politicians debate regulation, but they are divided. Some argue that the forever cure should be a human right, while others fear the societal impact. Overpopulation becomes a looming threat. Birth rates are still high, and with no deaths to offset them, cities swell beyond capacity. Resources dwindle. Water, food, and energy become scarce. The wealthy build walled cities, gated communities protected by private security, while the poor are left to scramble for what's left. The cure also disrupts the natural cycle of life. Inheritance laws are rewritten as generations refuse to die. Family wealth stays locked in place, passed down not to children but kept within the hands of the eternally young. The young are shut out of opportunities as positions of power and influence remain occupied by those who will never age, never retire, never make way. Economies strain under the weight of an immortal workforce that demands continuous support without the promise of new blood. There are whispers of underground clinics offering cheaper, unregulated versions of the forever cure. These black market treatments are less refined, using knockoff gene editing tools that skip essential safety checks. People desperate for a second chance risk everything for a shot at immortality. Many end up with severe side effects. Uncontrolled growths, organ failure, genetic mutations that twist the body into something unrecognizable. The authorities crack down, but the demand is too great to stop. Religions react with outrage. They call the forever cure unnatural, an affront to the natural order, a rebellion against the divine. Some churches excommunicate those who take the treatment, declaring them soulless, damned to live in eternity without redemption. New cults arise, embracing immortality as a path to godhood, promising transcendence through science rather than faith. The concept of an afterlife fades for some, replaced by the tangible promise of endless tomorrows. But for others, the absence of death brings a profound spiritual crisis. What is the purpose of life when eternity is a guarantee? Society fractures along new lines. Those who accept the cure and those who reject it, each convinced the other is fundamentally wrong. The forever cure also alters the nature of crime and punishment. Prisons, once built to house inmates for decades, struggle with the concept of eternity. Life sentences become a far grimmer fate when lifespans extend indefinitely. Criminals locked away find themselves trapped in endless cycles of incarceration, their bodies refusing to age or weaken. New ethical debates emerge over the morality of condemning someone to centuries behind bars. Some propose digital prisons, consciousness uploads into virtual cells, but the technology is imperfect, and the idea is met with widespread horror. The political landscape shifts. Nations with access to the forever cure gain an upper hand, their leaders never aging, their militaries filled with soldiers who heal from wounds that would kill any normal person. International relations are strained. Countries that cannot afford the cure are left behind, their populations aging and dying while others remain ageless. Tensions escalate, and wars break out over access to the technology, each side desperate to gain the upper hand in the new world order. As the decades pass, the forever cure becomes more refined, more accessible. The rich remain at the forefront, but trickle-down advancements begin to reach the upper middle class, then the middle class. Life expectancy grows, but so does inequality. The world becomes a place where age is not measured in years but in the quality of treatment one can afford. Humanity is divided not by time but by access. Research continues and new challenges arise. Microbial resistance becomes a threat as bacteria and viruses evolve in response to a population that never weakens. The immune system, once calibrated to handle a finite lifespan, struggles to keep up with pathogens that adapt faster than medicine can manage. Scientists race to develop new defenses, but the pressure is constant, unrelenting. The forever cure promised an end to death, but it brought with it a host of problems that no one had foreseen. Humanity had conquered aging, but at the cost of stability, ethics, and the delicate balance of life itself. The world, once driven by the inevitability of death, now grapples with the endless consequences of life without end. There is no going back. The forever cure has changed everything. What was once a dream of eternal youth has become a complex web of privilege, inequality, and unintended consequences. The future stretches out, infinite and uncertain, shaped not by time, but by the choices of those who dared to live forever. Decades stretch into centuries, and the world reshapes itself around immortality. The forever cure, once a rare luxury, trickles slowly into the hands of the masses, but it is never quite enough. Governments attempt to manage the distribution, but corruption festers. Officials hoard treatments for themselves and their allies, doling out access as a reward for loyalty. Black markets thrive, and organized crime syndicates peddle counterfeit versions, laced with unstable genetic modifications that promise youth but often deliver death. Environmental collapse accelerates. The earth groans under the weight of a population that grows without end. Natural resources are depleted faster than they can be replenished. Forests are cleared, oceans are overfished, and landfills overflow with the waste of a species that never stops consuming. Climate change, already a pressing crisis, spirals further out of control. Immortal corporations continue to chase profit at any cost, their boards filled with executives who have lost touch with the concept of mortality and urgency. The forever cure disrupts the cycle of life and death, and with it, the natural balance of ecosystems. Species that once thrived in the gaps left by aging humans find their habitats shrinking, pollinators vanish, plant life struggles, and food chains are disrupted. Agricultural lands are stretched thin as soil degradation and climate shifts make traditional farming increasingly untenable. Vertical farms and lab-grown food provide some relief, but the technology can't keep pace with the relentless demand. Cities expand, swallowing countryside and coastlines. Megacities rise, towering stacks of human life built ever higher as horizontal space becomes scarce. The wealthy live in penthouses above the smog, while the poor crowd into the shadowy depths, where sunlight never reaches and crime flourishes. Urban planners struggle to accommodate a population that refuses to die, and infrastructure creaks under the pressure. Traffic becomes a constant snarl, power grids falter, and clean water is rationed. Psychological effects ripple through society. The human mind, designed to cope with the brevity of life, struggles to process an existence without end. Depression, existential dread become widespread. Therapists and neuroscientists scramble to develop treatments for what they call eternal fatigue, a profound sense of purposelessness that settles into those who have lived beyond their original span. Suicide rates climb, even among the immortal, as some choose to end what medicine has made unending. Family dynamics change in ways no one predicted. Generations overlap in new and complicated ways, with grandparents, parents, children, and great-grandchildren all coexisting, all the same biological age. Inheritance disputes grow vicious, as fortunes are tied up indefinitely. Relationships strain as bonds meant to last a lifetime stretch on into perpetuity. Divorce rates spike, and new forms of social contracts emerge to manage the complexities of endless unions. The concept of the nuclear family fractures into something unrecognizable, fluid, and often transient. The forever cure also creates new ethical frontiers in reproduction. With aging no longer a factor, debates rage over the morality of bringing new lives into a world already struggling with the burdens of its immortals. Governments consider policies to regulate childbirth, and in some regions reproduction is restricted entirely, reserved for those who can prove their offspring will not overburden society. Genetic screening becomes mandatory, weeding out perceived imperfections before birth, crafting a population that is not only ageless but engineered for peak performance. Workplaces transform. The concept of retirement fades away, replaced by perpetual careers. People switch professions multiple times across their lives, retraining in new fields as old industries become obsolete. AI and automation take over more roles, and the job market shrinks, leaving many struggling to find purpose in a world that no longer needs them. Basic income programs are proposed, then abandoned, as economic models struggle to adapt to a society where the concept of earning a living no longer applies in the traditional sense. Political power becomes entrenched. Leaders who never age hold onto their seats for decades, their policies stagnating as they lose touch with the needs of the newer generations. Dynasties emerge, ruling with an iron grip, backed by wealth and the promise of eternal life. Rebellion simmers at the edges, but the immortals have all the resources, all the technology, and the ability to outlast any resistance. Young activists age out of movements while their opponents remain forever the same. The forever cure's promise of health and vitality brings about an obsession with physical perfection. Cosmetic enhancements become the norm, and body modification evolves beyond recognition. Skin, muscle, bone. All can be reshaped, replaced, upgraded. People trade their original parts for synthetic improvements, rejecting the human body in favor of designs limited only by imagination. Natural faces become rare, and identity blurs as bodies are rebuilt to fit transient ideals. The environment suffers further as the forever cure extends beyond humans. Efforts to apply the technology to animals to preserve endangered species bring mixed results. While some animals thrive, others become invasive, spreading unchecked without the limits of natural lifespans. Ecological balance is thrown into chaos, and the line between conservation and control blurs. Wildlife sanctuaries turn into bioengineered reserves where nothing dies, unless it's decided by a human hand. There are fears that the forever cure could be weaponized. Military applications are explored in secret labs, where soldiers are enhanced for resilience, healing, and longevity. Rumors circulate of genetically modified troops capable of surviving injuries that would kill any normal human. Nations engage in a new arms race, not of missiles and tanks, but of biology and life extension, pushing the boundaries of what it means to be human. In the end, the forever cure reshapes every aspect of life. It brings prosperity for some, despair for others, and questions for which there are no easy answers. The medicine that once promised a utopia of eternal youth has delivered a complex, stratified world where every benefit comes with a cost. The earth itself groans under the weight of endless humanity, while the skies fill with the smoke of unceasing industry, and the oceans bear the brunt of relentless consumption. What began as a scientific triumph has become a societal labyrinth. An endless series of challenges, ethical dilemmas, and unintended consequences. The forever cure has given humanity the gift of time, but what it does with that time remains uncertain. The future is a vast, uncharted expanse, where the old rules no longer apply, and the cost of eternal life is a question that no one yet knows how to answer. The world moves forward, not with the slow march of progress, but with the relentless churn of existence unbound by the limits of mortality.